Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap, and over the past month, I've been using the new OnePlus 7 and 7 Pro. Let's cut to the chase. For me, there were 5 big questions I wanted answered. Number 1, is the OnePlus 7 Pro really worth paying extra for over the 7? Number 2, are these actually a big upgrade over last year's 6T? I've got the fancy purple edition here. Number 3, is the camera actually any good now on the new OnePlus phones? Number 4, what are they like to use every day? And number 5, the big question, should you actually buy one of these? But before we start, it would mean so much if you hit that subscribe button and ding that little notification bell. And if you already have, then you can follow me on Instagram at the Tech Chap for lots of extra techie goodness and behind the scenes shots. So number 1, versus the standard OnePlus 7, the 7 Pro, as you can see, has a bigger screen. It's also high resolution and has a smoother 90Hz refresh rate. We also get curved edges, a pop-out selfie camera in place of the notch, up to 12 gigabytes of RAM versus 8 gigs on the 7, and a slightly better camera setup with an extra ultra-wide lens, and the telephoto has a 3x optical zoom versus 2x on the standard 7. So yeah, objectively the 7 Pro is a better phone, but I know not everyone is a fan of these curved edges on the screen. The OnePlus 7 is just a bit smaller and easier to use, so if you've got small hands or you like to use your phone one-handed, then that probably is actually a selling point of this. Plus, of course, it is cheaper. Also, a spec sheet doesn't tell you everything, because while the 7 Pro does have a bigger battery, 3700 versus 4000 milliamps, because of the size, resolution, refresh rate difference, in reality, you're getting pretty much exactly the same battery on both of these. At the end of a normal working day, I consistently had between 30 and 35% of my battery left. Also, this top spec 7 Pro has 12 gigs of RAM. Nobody needs 12 gigs of RAM. Some will say future-proofing, but no, save yourself a few quid and go for one of these models with either 6 or 8 gigabytes. But I guess the point is, these differences, do they make a fundamental difference when actually using the phone? No, I don't think they do. I mean, they've got the same processor, same software, same UFS 3 storage. So the question is, would you pay an extra $150 for a 90Hz screen, ultra-wide camera lens, and a better, more premium design? For me, I think I would pay that difference because once you try that 90Hz screen in real life, it really does make everything feel faster and smoother. Plus, I'm just a bit of a sucker for a good ultra-wide photo. But if you're not bothered about those things, go for the 7, you won't be disappointed. The fact is though, they're both really good value for money. I mean, take the cheapest 7 Pro for example. It has near enough the same specs as the Galaxy S10 Plus. Here's one I made earlier. 6 gigs of RAM, 128 storage, triple camera setup, and yet this costs $250 less. Although to be fair, this has been out for a few months now, so you could probably get it a little bit cheaper. And the camera is still a bit better, but I'll talk more about that in a second. But what about number 2? Is it actually a big upgrade over last year's 6T? No, it's not worth upgrading from the 6T, although there are some nice new features. We now get stereo speakers, a more powerful processor, faster UFS 3 storage, quicker 30-watt warp charging, and a bigger, much more reliable in-screen fingerprint reader. Plus all the extras you get on the 7 Pro that we just talked about. But still, neither of these have wireless charging, any official IP rating, and neither of them come with headphone jacks. Also, the standard OnePlus 7 is almost identical to last year's 6T, aside from this different color, pretty much exactly the same. So from the 6T to the 7 and the 7 Pro, there are a few nice new features, but the one reason you might potentially want to upgrade is the camera, which very neatly brings me on to question 3. Is the camera actually finally any good? So the good news is the 7 and the 7 Pro have all new sensors, all new software, so it is definitely a step up, but not to the extent you might have hoped for. I took all 3 phones with me to Taipei for Computex recently, as I thought it would be a great opportunity to test the cameras. First impressions, there's not really a whole lot between them, although I did see the biggest improvement in low light shots, especially when shooting with the nightscape mode. You can see Taipei 101 here, and if I zoom in, the 6T is a lot noisier and it's lacking in detail and sharpness. So I get back from Taipei, I've got all my camera samples, good to go for the review, and then I get home and see that there's a big new update for the camera, which apparently is the software that DxOMark had been using when they awarded this a score of 111. So on the one hand, all my Taipei shots are now a bit out of date, as is any review that came before this week, but on the other, I guess the camera should now be better. Well, side by side, you can see the photo on the right with the new software is clearer and sharper, particularly around the Stormtrooper. It's not a huge difference, but you can also see the way it handles the brighter areas on the chair and the wall a bit differently. Zooming in, again on Stormy, you can see it is less noisy and a bit of a clearer overall photo. And so armed with the latest software, I wanted to see how the 7 Pro and the 7 compared to the Pixel 3a. This is the 3a XL, which I consider to have one of the best cameras on any phone right now. And this one costs $470. It's actually cheaper than the standard OnePlus 7. So on this grey old day here in the UK, the biggest difference is color temperature. The OnePlus is warmer, but if you look at the road, you can see more detail in the pixels shot. These are both taken with the main lens, but don't forget you do also get that 3x optical zoom with OnePlus 7, and on the 7 Pro we get the ultra wide angle. Comparing photos of my fake desk plant, again, I definitely prefer the Pixel here. The colors are more natural, particularly on my hand, and there's just a bit more detail in the, I don't know, what would you even call it? The leaves, the grass, the green stuff. They both take really nice photos though, and you can see the OnePlus has a bit of a shallower depth of field, so even the fake plant is out of focus here. But the 3a is definitely sharper. You can see more dust on the surface to the right, and that little Chap logo is clearer. Taking a wider shot, there's not a whole lot in it, but if you look at the carpet or the phone cases on the white table, again you do get more detail on the 3a. But I think the OnePlus holds its own. And I feel like I'm beginning to sound like a bit of a broken record because while they both do look good, the Pixel definitely wins. You can see more detail in the wood below the bulb and the dust on top of the glass case. The Pixel does often favor a cooler bluish hue, while the OnePlus is a bit warmer. Which one do you prefer? However, this is where things get a little bit frustrating. This is just a normal photo taken on both, not using night mode, and you can see the OnePlus produces a much brighter image, but it also looks flatter and less natural. The wine glass and the orange label on the bottle of wine are much more true to life on the Pixel. But look what happens when we take the same shot in their respective night modes. The Pixels doesn't change that much, it kind of works best in super low light, but it is impossible to get a non-blurry shot on the OnePlus. It seems that since the new update, using nightscape mode will often start a 5 to 15 second long exposure, and unless it's on a tripod, there's just no way you can get a stable shot. I've tried again outside and the Pixel looks great, but the OnePlus 7 looks like there's a bloody earthquake or something. I also wanted to see if the update had fixed that low light video stabilization issue. Simple answer, no. This does only happen in low light, but even the much cheaper Pixel 3a does a better job. So to answer the question, is the OnePlus 7's camera any good? Well, yes it is, and it is definitely a step up from before, but not really to the level that you might hope for. Once again, I feel like this is one area that OnePlus still need to put more work into. If the £400 Pixel 3a can beat it, I feel like everyone else should be upping their game. But let's move on from the camera, and question 4, what are they like to use every day? Well, here's 6 things I love about them, and 4 things I definitely don't love. This nebula blue color on the 7 Pro is just beautiful. It has a smooth matte finish, and the shimmering blue color really stands out. The alert slider is really handy, you can quickly put it on vibrate or silent mode if you want. The speakers sound really good. OnePlus say they're Dolby Atmos tuned, but I'm not really sure that means anything beyond just a bit of marketing. But for the first time, we are getting stereo speakers, and they sound great. The front camera is also fantastic. It's the same 16 megapixel f2 lens on both phones, and it's absolutely one of my favorite smartphones for taking selfies. No annoying beauty modes I can't turn off, realistic, detailed, good. I also really like how quickly you can charge these, although there is a bit of a difference because the 7 Pro supports their latest Warp Charge 30 technology, so you can get from 0 to 50% in 20 minutes, whereas the standard OnePlus 7 is 20 watt charging, so it takes half an hour to do 0 to 50%. And finally, they've improved the in-screen fingerprint reader. Now for some things I don't love so much. And while the pop-out camera on the 7 Pro is pretty cool, it's also fast, even for face unlocking, and it does mean we get a full screen without a notch. We just don't know about its long-term durability when dust and other stuff might get in there. It also makes this mechanical bzzz noise every time it opens and closes. It's not really a problem, but when this happens dozens of times a day, it can get a bit annoying. And also, while the face unlocking is good, it doesn't have IR sensors, so it doesn't work as well at night. As I mentioned earlier, there's also no IP rating or wireless charging, which is a bit disappointing. And also the 7 Pro is quite heavy, weighs 206 grams. Plus the curved edges and smooth back make it very slippery to hold, so I would definitely put a case on it. Last question, should you actually buy a OnePlus 7 or a 7 Pro? For me, the OnePlus 7 and 7 Pro are great all-rounders. I fully switched to the 7 Pro, and until I guess the Google Pixel 4 comes out later in the year, I reckon I'll be sticking with this as my everyday phone, and I do highly recommend it. And if you can afford to pay the extra, personally I would recommend going for the 7 Pro. That 90Hz screen is gorgeous. But what do you reckon? Would you go for the 7 or the 7 Pro, or do you think there's a better option out there? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate that was quite a long video, but if you did enjoy it, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.